Welcome to King Closer's Formula. That way, I got my partner with me, Cassie.
Hi.
I'm so excited to be back. I was gone for 10 days, people. You didn't know because we still brought you videos every single day, but I've been gone. I missed last Tuesday, but Cassie took the reins. Cassie, how'd you do last Tuesday?
Killed it.
You killed it?
Yeah.
You know what's hilarious is so last Tuesday you did how to comp a deal in 5 minutes. And it was a redo of your video that you did previously, which was how to comp a deal in 4 minutes. We just changed it up because that's what YouTube makes you do. They don't want you just redoing the same videos over and over and over again. So we changed it from 4 to 5. And on the thumbnail, I specifically put on there, the video is going to take longer than 5 minutes. And we still had people complain that the video is longer than 5 minutes. These people.
Literally, I feel like whoever did that is just full of baloney because I had people begging me not to leave after like 2.5 hours or 2 hours and 15 minutes, begging me to tell them when we're going to do that video again. Like, when am I going live again to cover how to comp and blah, 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 blah.
Little did they know that I had plans to bring you back 7 days later. And today we're going to talk about how do you know if you have a good deal, right? We get asked this all the time. People want to simplify this down. They want some magical formula, some number like a profit percentage or a ratio. Like, okay, if rehab is 40 grand and profit is 40 grand, Cassie, do I have a good deal? So today, we're just going to completely mind fuck you and tell you that it doesn't exist. Why?
Well, I want to go into it, but I'm going to hold off until we have the visual up. But I just want to say this. The people that really want to do that, I understand why. They want the easy button. But here's the deal. All these easy buttons are based on the wrong thing. They're trying to calculate a percentage. And percentages just don't apply to everything. So, we're really big at Titanium University. I hone in on this all the time. I talk about it all the time. And that is getting people to understand profit return, the project, what it's like to sit in that end buyer's seat. We call it the web where end buyers buy. So we're real huge on actually educating people to understand what that deal is like versus trying to go with the easy button route. Obviously anybody who's been here more than a second knows that, I created what we call the profit calculator. It's based on profit, not a profit percentage. It's just basic math to understand that a percentage is not going to work on varying types of levels of rehab and price points and different markets. So, we're real big on actually understanding the numbers here, in other words.
Absolutely. Is the juice worth the squeeze, right? If you were the end buyer, would you want to do this deal and why? Because realistically, when we think about what are we doing when we're analyzing and we're underwriting a deal, it's basically we are trying to figure out what is our sales pitch to our end buyer. How are we going to dispo this deal? And we always do such a great job on here. I saw someone asked, do you have a script I could use? I dropped a link in there where you could download the closer's formula for free. We do such a great job of talking about how to talk to sellers. And then we have narrowed that down to where it's like, okay, listen, there's enough videos of RJ talking about how to talk to sellers. let's get in the nitty-gritty details of things, right? Over the past, let's say 12 months, we've done a great job of really like narrowing it down to like the specific types of sellers that we have to talk to and when you have to pivot and talk differently. And one of those is the most common type of seller where the price is incorrect. And we talk about how you have to educate the seller to get them to come down. Does their motivation match the numbers that we need? And how do we do that? We educate them and we explain to them, here's what we're seeing the after repair value of this property is. Here's what we're seeing what the rehab is. And then we reverse engineer that using the profit calculator, where it's if the ARV is this, we have holding costs, we have closing costs, we have rehab, then we need to make profit. This is how we're coming up with our offer. So we educate them. One of the things that I want everyone to understand on today's video is we do the exact same thing during dispositions. When we're talking to our end buyers, and if an end buyer were to say, I'm going to pass on that deal, the numbers don't work for me, we're going to ask them, what do you see as the after repair value? What do you have for repairs? Okay, Mr. Buyer, Mrs. Buyer, we're seeing the exact same thing, and we have allocated X amount of holding costs, X amount of closing costs. That lands you with this much profit. Where are we not understanding? Where are we not on the same page? That's why today's episode is so important, because this is also vitally important on the disposition side just as much as the acquisition side. And I don't think people understand that. I think people get lost into, hey, do I have a good deal? Well, your buyers are going to tell you you have a good deal, but you can't get bullied by your buyers if you don't understand your numbers. So here's how today's episode is going to go. I have a list of properties. And when I say a list, I'm talking about 800 properties to choose from. And inside of these 800 properties, this is Titanium University's comp portal. So one of the things that we give every single member of Titanium University is the opportunity for them to turn in a deal to Titanium and say, this is what I think the ARV is, this is what I think the rehab is, and why. Here's the address. And then we will comp it and we will underwrite the deal and say if they're correct or not and coach them through this. Now, we don't comp the deal for them. It's a coaching mechanism. So I'm going to leverage that today. We're not going to use any of the addresses. We're just going to do the numbers. Cassie taught you guys last week how to comp. So coming up with the after repair value should no longer be an issue. Today is just about underwriting. How do you determine what you should offer to a seller and why? Is the juice worth the squeeze to your end buyer? So what I'm going to give Cassie is an after repair value. I'm going to give her the square foot of the property. I'm going to give the condition based off of what the seller told us the condition is and an asking price. If it's tenant occupied, I will give the rent rate. And then she will underwrite the deal and explain why it is a deal at said numbers or where it needs to be to determine if you have a good deal or not. So without further ado, let's bring up our third member of today's panel, the profit calculator. Yay!
Woo!
Cassie, you know what I'm blown away? I'm blown away by the fact that people love this damn thing so much. Why do you think people love this so much?
How dare you? How dare you, sir?
Why do you think they love it so much?
Actually, what's really funny about that is, I actually for years and years didn't realize how necessary this actually was to you and I. I understand that for forever and ever, amen, that it was just some math we did in our head. You know what I mean? But I really, really, truly believe that this changed the game for so many people because of what I already mentioned. They're running on an MAO formula, easy button thing. and they're not understanding why their deals are not making it to the closing table, right? To this day, I know that everybody, knows that you don't always use this. Like, you will initially, but you don't use it through the whole process. Sometimes I would venture to say, knowing you don't use it necessarily at all, because you do the math in your head, and you just need to understand that most people aren't like that. And you also need to understand that while you're underwriting, the way that I teach comps, you guys, is often like there's layers of comps while you're going through the King Closers formula, which I believe RJ dropped in the comments. While you're going through that, I plug in layers of numbers. I plug in my initial 30-second numbers, and then I tweak from there as I go through that seller call. So I mean, RJ, as much as you want to say you can't believe it, I was shocked initially as well, like when we first went public facing with the profit calculator. I have received, I don't know how many hundreds, if not more than hundreds of messages saying this changed everything for people. And so I think it's because it is a visual, it is a tool that represents how we teach people to look at wholesaling. Most people do it front to back, whereas we teach it from, the perspective of where end buyers buy. I'm starting to hear other people speak on that now, like, so I know the message is getting through to people. I know the message of, coming back to the math and the facts and taking away just the room for discrepancy. When you're talking to buyers and when you're talking to sellers, it's a game changer for people, and them having that in a tool that they can use that's condensed down like this is. I've seen people who have tried to create their own version of it even, and then they're trying to ask me questions, and I'm like, just pay for the training, bro. It's so cheap. I've had people tell me that this is better than programs, just the one thing that we have, Titanium Profits, just the one little quick training on this and how to comp is worth more than programs that they've paid thousands and thousands of dollars for.
Which I'm mad at you about. I just want to say, because no one ever messages me that about the King Closers war chest. And
no one ever messages you that?
No one ever messages me.
Well, I think this is why our team tells us we need to be louder about this.
It's because I leave them on unread. All right, let's do this. Are you ready? Round one.
Hey, I'll let you know. Yeah, I can. People can vouch for it, but
Well, vouch for this. Yeah, brother. Like,
I guess people leave it in the comments. Maybe they're on a platform and people are commenting. No, I mean,
like literally, like
go into our free Facebook group. I don't know.
Literally at this point, like thousands of people. But I love Kente. Hey, Kente comes in on every Tuesday live and has questions like that. At some point in time, Kente is going to jump on the bandwagon. It's all right. We got you. All right, let's do this. Round one. Fight. ARV. 140,000.
Ooh.
It's a pretty common price point, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to give you the repairs. I'm just going to tell you what the seller told us. Okay.
Okay. Tell me the square footage first.
The square footage is 1650.
What did the seller tell us about this property?
The seller bought this and they were going to do a live-in flip. So they were going to house hack. Okay. And they did an addition, which added 2 bedrooms and around 200 square feet to get us up to the 1650. They installed new flooring throughout. They updated the kitchen cabinets and hardware and installed new windows. The seller said the only big things left are finishing the drywall in the addition, running new electric to the addition, and finishing the siding on the outside of the addition. So everything, all the rehab needed is in the addition. They said they would leave all of the materials, like the siding and the drywall, since they had already purchased it. So they're saying nothing needs to be done to the house. It is a 200 square foot addition that needs drywall, electric, siding, and they'll leave all of the materials.
Contract price of seller.
The seller's asking price was $88,000.
This is not a deal.
Okay. So I want to ask you, because I think everyone is going to first be confused around $35,000 number in rehab. How did you come up with that?
Okay, so here's my situation. Since I cannot comp this, I'm thinking after repair values. Like this is my high number on being extremely aggressive, right? I don't know what these look like. This could be easily as low as but when I hear drywall, I hear insulation, I hear baseboards, I hear tape bed texture paint, like I hear the whole kit and caboodle, right? So I'm thinking there's going to be at least 25,000 just on that addition, and here's why. You have a 200 square foot addition. To me, it's basically down to studs. Like I have to account for that to be reasonable, right? Plus you have exterior siding and electrical. So I'm thinking $25,000 there is like my minimum rehab. And that's assuming the house, is maybe not needing anything, but I need to have a little wiggle room on the 1450 rest of the square foot.
All right, let me stop you there, because this we've already found a flaw in our process today. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We did have pictures on this.
Okay.
The house is completely remodeled and it is done and it is stellar. Okay. I mean,
beautiful.
It was done really well. It is truly a 200 square foot addition that it already has insulation. It literally needs drywall, tape bed texture, paint, siding, and electrical in that addition. That is it. And then baseboards. It already had flooring, everything else. And remember, they left us the materials. So, in nothing.
Still not a deal. And that's my point.
I know. Okay, because here's my question now. So you bump that down to $15,000. I feel like that's a fair number. I feel like it's a little bit aggressive, but you and I have flipped many houses. We know how that works, right? There's still going to be the finishing. There's going to be the lawn care. There's going to be the cleanup. There's going to be the continuing maintenance of the property while it's listed. There's a lot of things that take place there. Okay.
Well, we're talking like light fixtures. You said a bedroom and a bathroom?
It's 200 square feet.
Okay, so just a bedroom?
It just looks like it's just a room. Yeah, like a bedroom. So my question is, people get lost because they've heard you and I both say 1-to-1 ratio on repairs to rehab or profit. So rehab and profit. If we could get this to where, say we moved our wholesale fee to $5,000, that bumps us to a $15,000 repairs and $15,000 profit. Why would that not be a deal?
Okay, so let's just talk about this a little bit more in detail. And you can kind of look at this while I chat about this. $15,000, does that include running ductwork? Is it like going to be air conditioned and heated?
All of that's done.
Okay, cool. Where I want to go from here is, number one, I definitely, even though this price point would sometimes be okay for me to like end up at 5,000, I really know you think this is aggressive, and I don't. I have no idea because I didn't comp it here either, if that's accurate, etc. So my biggest deal with this is that this is not a deal because I am not going to go spend $125,000 to turn around and make 15 grand. Like, I'm just not. It's not worth it. And that's what RJ's talking about. When I talk about the juice, is the juice worth the squeeze here? I just feel like I'm not willing to invest 6 figures to potentially turn around and make 15,000. I don't know what kind of siding we're talking about either. For me as an investor, I'm not going to purchase any property to do any kind of remodeling to, because here's the thing. The main house might be gorgeous. It might be perfect, but does it have the right amount of insulation in the attic to pass inspections? Like, I'm not asking RJ here, what year was the house originally built? There's always repairs when you list this on the MLS and you have a conventional loan or a VA loan or an FHA loan, like a traditional lender coming back and doing an inspection. There's a laundry list. I always include at least $5,000 for a perfect property. So to me, I think this is low for me as an investor. And I'm not willing to personally, in most markets, you will find that I'm not going to list, or I'm not going to take on a rehab project for like less than a potential $35,000, at least $30,000 profit. I'm just not willing to take on that risk. One little thing goes wrong, like this AC unit goes out. We've had all kinds of things happen, and you have to consider that from the end buyer's perspective. Is the risk worth the reward? That's why I call it, is the juice worth the squeeze, right? It's the same exact phrase. I'm not willing to go ahead and take that risk, do that work, and make so little for my investment. Return on investment. This is why those MAO formulas do not work. This is why I don't like percentages here, right? You get a property that's in sub 150 ARV that needs any kind of work. You're talking like people just don't understand. Like this only works as a potential buy and hold. That's exactly what I think of when I see these numbers. But if you were to tell me, I'm just going to go ahead and make a crazy assumption here.
Oh, hold on. Don't go down the buy and hold. I'm going to walk you down the path. Don't go there.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I get excited.
From a flip perspective, what number works? Because that's the
what
question.
What number works for me, where end buyers are going to buy, which is this. I should change that. Contract price to buyer. I should just change it to say web. Where end buyers will buy this is going to be in the range of no higher than 78,000 in my opinion. I think an end buyer would buy this for 75,000.
Okay. Now.
And you're moving it. It's a good wholesale deal.
Right. Now, go to the rental calculator. You already know all the numbers. The rent rate is $1,500 a month.
Ooh, yeah, I was gonna guess 1,400. So this is exactly how I fill this in. Are we gonna have a rare beauty situation here? Oof, this baby, she looking sweet as a rental. She looking sweet as a rental here. As a buy and hold investor, to me, you could get a buy and hold investor to potentially even pay more for that. What market is this in?
Iowa. So, yeah, I would want this. I would want the equity percentage to be right at 30%.
Is it small town Iowa?
Right. That's the that right there.
That's actually what I was going to say. I wouldn't go over 80 in that case.
So let me break this down in RJ terms. This is the reason why this is a deal. Okay. And we actually discussed this today inside of Titanium University's implementation call. The reason why this is a deal is because you're providing them with 30% equity. So your end buyer can come in and refinance out at 70% and pull all of their cash out.
Yeah.
What an end buyer wants. And then it's banger cash flow. So from a wholesaler perspective, what you are doing here is you are providing equity and cash flow to your end buyer. You're also not determining the exit strategy. You're not saying this is a great buy and hold. It could be a flip too. One of the things we never want to do is tell the end buyer what they need to do because we didn't do our job. And that's regularly what we do when we go to wholesale great buy and holds. You just didn't provide any equity. You didn't do half of your job. But if you come in and you sell this for $80,000 to your end buyer, they can decide to flip it. They can potentially wholesale it, and they can keep it as a buy and hold. Or even at this price point, they could even keep it and sell it seller finance. This is a great deal if you were to get it to your end buyer at $80,000. Anything below that, that's your cut, right? So for me, it's like, yeah, I mean, 75, okay, 5,000 pop, whatever, get you some more leads. 70, even better. It's a tough price point because normally at this price point, it's going to be hard to get up to the $15,000, $20,000 assignments unless there's massive motivation. That's a great example right now. Okay, let's clear the slate. Let's move on to example number 2. We're going to go up into a higher price point here. Okay.
I'm ready for you.
Go ahead and clear out the rent. I don't want anybody joining late to get confused. So let's clear out all the numbers.
You're staring at me like I'm reading your mind over here, dog.
Yeah. I just don't want anybody to be like, what's going on in the rental calculator, you know?
Yeah, I got you.
Kente might yell at us, you know?
Oh, I know. We don't want Kente to yell at us. We want him to have a good time today.
Yeah. All right. After repair value is $550,000.
Ooh, she cute.
Yeah. All right. This is what the seller told us. Seller said it needs $30,000 in work.
What's the square footage?
Square footage is 2,485. Seller says it needs 30,000 because he already took care of it. Fixed things as they came up. Also, houses in the area have average interiors, nothing too fancy. House is in good shape. 2 AC units, both are 3 years old. Roof is 8 years old. Quartz countertops. Kitchens have been updated. Bathrooms have been updated.
Asking price?
$450,000 was the seller's asking price, not the offer.
Not a deal at seller's asking price. Let's drum roll.
So
I think that depending on the market, and if this is like a normal price range, which it sounds like it is for that market, this could work at these dollar for dollar numbers. I would like to be a little bit more aggressive than this, but from all of the information I have, this is a deal right here without me seeing comps based on the calculator.
Boss TV thing. That's why she didn't get offended. We're used to it.
People would be offended by that.
Say Montego 1958. Okay. Welcome. I appreciate your question. Now I'm going to yell at you like you're a TU member. Okay. Say Montego 1958. The entire reason why we're doing this video is because of that question right there. Yeah, you want so bad for me to tell you if this, then that. You have to understand. You have to develop a thought process and a skill set around understanding why a deal is a deal. No, it should never be that's not going to ever be the thing where I say, yeah, buyer's profit should be 2 times the amount of repairs. No, it was on the last one, and we explained why. We're about to explain why 1-to-1 ratio on this one works.
Yeah. So actually, like, that's such a solid point. This is also a great example of why the MAO formula won't work too, even though we're not doing an MAO formula on this. But a profit percentage is indicative of, like, the MAO formula, you're going to have usually 10% or more on your profit percentage is what that formula counts for. So if you're here at the beginning of the show, this is why we just don't do things based on percentages. Now, the other thing to take into consideration that people often don't do that we're not covering in this video, but I did cover last week, is as is comps, right? So the market, us determining if people are buying similar condition properties for less than 375 or excuse me, 395 in this market, then you're not going to get an investor to invest 395 in this too. So multiple things could say that this is not a deal, but for the sake of this exercise, y'all, we're talking about trying to understand the math behind the thought process here, okay? You're trying to understand how a good deal looks on this calculator, okay? So for this price range, me knowing in most places in this country, from what the seller says, yeah, I do need to be a little bit aggressive, but the seller said there was still $30,000 left to do, which means there's no way, even if there's quartz, even if there's this, even if there's that, maybe it's flooring, maybe it's exterior paint, maybe it's interior paint, but it's a larger house, so we have to just like assume and be a little bit aggressive here. That's also assuming that this is correct on the ARV. We're not being like a little bit too aggressive on this on ARV. So I like to be a little bit conservative as a house buyer who flips properties. I want to be not the highest priced property that is getting listed and sold for the condition or for the neighborhood, right? I want to actually come in just below my as is and just below or just below the ARV for what it can be justified, just below the on-market comps that are in similar condition and be just a little bit better, okay? So that's what your buyers are looking for, right? So I would rather you be a little conservative here, a little aggressive here, and then make sure that you're on where end buyers buy. They're not able to go just pluck this off the MLS for less than $395, and you should be golden. That's how you know you have a good deal. It is not based on the fact that this needs to match actually dollar for dollar, although in most common price points, until you get pretty low or pretty high, until you get to the extremes, you're pretty good on that usually. But it's going to vary when it's a gut job. It's going to vary when it's a burnout. And we get these questions all of the time. That's why it's a rule of thumb that people can live by. And I feel so bad for RJ a lot of the times, but I get picked on plenty for this. So like I feel not so bad sometimes. He gives people a very direct answer, whereas I start talking and teaching and going into detail on this stuff, where it's like, don't ask him for like a rule of thumb and then just be like, it doesn't work all the time. Now I know more. And it's like, you ask for a rule of thumb. For a rule of thumb, yeah, dollar for dollar can work. But when you're talking about wholesales, that can skew the numbers. This is why percentages don't work. From everything that I am being told, this works because I'm a little bit aggressive on the repairs that should cover it. If not, it will be discovered. But we're still $75,000 off from what the seller is asking. So this is also, RJ mentioned earlier, why this is such a powerful tool to educate the seller. Like, hey man, I'm not going to go in over $500,000 after my closing and holding costs for this and make less than 10% profit on this. I mean, that's pretty rough, buddy. We're pretty far off here, You better come up with a $30,000 to finish this job out, or go list it at it as is and pay all those, numbers, because at the end of the day, you're going to net about the same
Yeah,
when
but
you
for
have to do the
me,
repair.
when I look at this, is a very common lead. This is a very common discrepancy in price, right? I don't feel you have to get good at closing these types of leads where a seller wants $450 in a $550,000 neighborhood, right? Gaetano, you didn't miss anything on the. We did rentals on the first one. There's no rental on this one because it's $550,000 neighborhood.
And it's probably got like a $2,500 or $3,000 a month rent rate, and it's just not going to cut.
Another thing that I want to point out here that I think is vitally important is that Cassie increased the wholesale fee to $20,000 on this, and so that gives you wiggle room, especially if your buyer were to come back and say, "Hey, $385," it's still okay. Cool, you just make $10,000 instead of 20. All right, let's do another one. Similar price point, going to be different on the repairs. Okay. So this is actually in Austin, Texas. High price point, great market, right? $700,000 ARV.
Let's go. Square footage.
Square footage is going to be. I'm going to tell you the year built, okay, to help you, because there's very little information in regards to the condition. 1938 is the
in
year
Austin.
In Austin. Square footage is 686.
Of course it is. Okay. This is close to downtown, I presume.
It is a full gut rehab.
Woo! Interior and exterior?
It needs everything. Borderline teardown.
Borderline teardown.
There's also an argument here in a market like Austin, why not just tear it down?
Yeah. Contract price to seller.
Seller was asking $560.
Oh my God. Keep Austin weird, eh?
Offer price $390.
Okay, I feel like they went a little aggressive on that offer price, if this is accurate here. So I want to go ahead and like speak on my numbers really fast before I change this. You said 560 was the seller's asking price. So obviously, guys, not a deal. Red alert. Sellers don't understand. Like, they just don't understand. Now, we're going to go ahead and assume the best exit is not going to be a tear down and rebuild, because you can get prices and up to like $170,000 for sometimes like stuff like that in Austin and an area that this is typically in. I'm just making a lot of assumptions because I've comped 1 million deals in Austin, Texas that are 700 square foot properties, etc. I'm just going to go ahead with a 1930s build, knowing that it's going to need some probably cast iron plumbing. It's going to need some, electrical panels. Like, you cannot assume like anything's good, including the driveway, right? And so you could easily spend upwards of, this $70,000 number if you don't know what you're doing by the time that property gets inspected. If you don't do this right from the get-go, these types of properties become a $90,000 property really, really, or $90,000 rehab really fast, guys. So knowing like the Austin, Texas area buyers are going to like, potentially even spend more on this, but also knowing what these properties look like, you can make them look like very like mid-century, like funky colors, kind of like artsy looking, and not spend too much. You can get good prices on materials for what these properties look like. I'm safely going with $70,000. I know that you would be led to be misled if you just looked at this as a gut job here. But knowing that 1938 costs, and he said darn near a teardown, I'm assuming a lot more, okay, because of the majors and the costs of the majors here. Like I said, cast iron plumbing in Texas is a really big thing. I don't know if this is going to have foundation work. I'm automatically assuming, you know, HVAC, plumbing, roof, electrical, all this stuff. So I know for a fact from everything that I've done, sometimes this gut job number on such a small square footage of a property can be very misleading, right? Whereas if you have a larger square footage of property, some of those costs can kind of be filtered in, right? Because what's the best way to say it? Electric might cost more, but the base price for a panel is not going to cost that much less. You know what I mean? It's wiring and things like that. Air ducts, you know, yeah, everything's going to cost a little bit more. But when it's the smaller square footage, that price per square foot can kind of be misleading when you're talking about, you know, that small square footage of a house. And I just happen to have done a couple of these myself. So I know that $70,000 is very feasible. Could easily be up to 90, even though it's only.
I'll tell you right now, if I were the acquisitions person on this deal, if I were on the phone and it's a borderline tear down, and I'm thinking, you know, we're gonna have to do the siding, the roof, probably foundation, windows, probably like there's gonna have to be customization.
Is it siding or is it like we can paint it?
I'm just throwing
Yeah,
I don't know. Just throwing out examples. There's going to have to be like, in order for a 700 square foot property to sell for $700,000, despite the fact that it's in Austin, Texas, it has to be very custom and unique and stand out. So there's going to have to be things like in the TV world, they would give us where it's like, what's going to be the standout thing? Let's get a vendor to come in. And, you know, sometimes it was like a design that we did on the wall. We did some really cool shit that y'all never got to see. Wallpaper or something that stands out, a special type of bathroom, right?
Does this remind you of any property we did for the TV show?
Yeah, right. I would have just, I'll be honest with you, you're right. I don't use all of the calculator. I would have slapped in 700,000 ARV. I would have slapped in $100,000 on repairs.
Good gravy.
Good. 100,000.
Correct. Like
100,000 repairs. Put me at 400,000 on contract price to seller. Okay, and then drop me at 30,000 on my wholesale fee. That's what I would have gone for. And here's the reason why. Because one, I'm going to assume that it doesn't actually need $100,000, but I gave myself that. I'm giving myself a healthy wholesale fee. And at the end of the day, all my end buyers know is that I'm giving them this property for $430,000.
Right.
Everything in between there is between me and Cassie and God. Like no one else needs to know anything in between. That's up for them to come up with. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying, can I find an end buyer that will buy this for $430,000? And I know I've been more than reasonable with my rehab amount. And also,
you're extremely reasonable, because that house I just mentioned for the TV show was a 65, and it was missing exterior walls. It was like it needed. I don't know what kind of condition this sucker's in, but I thought I was being aggressive at 70. You know,
we weren't trying to sell it for $700,000 either. So again, I want to give it to them. I also want to potentially lock this up and then walk away and say, can we make $450,000? Here's the other thing that we're not talking about. What's the seller's needs? What's the seller's motivation? What does the seller need to walk away with? If the seller says they need to walk away with $450,000 on this, then we toggle these numbers and we figure out that's the beauty of the profit calculator.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
Let's go ahead and pop these in here, even just the way that I was going to pop them. And what's interesting about this is you said they had offered 390.
390.
Which I don't know how they ended up with that.
I know exactly how they ended up with that. It was Hyro. Hyro is a savage.
I am literally thinking, like, I wouldn't be mad at like this either, right? Like, this is probably where I would have landed. And then I would have said, I mean, now again, I would verify this through comps, which you guys aren't seeing. Just, where some of these properties are selling in that as is condition. So that kind of does lead me to believe the comps conditions. Like when RJ says like we're selling it at 700,000, depending on what part of Austin, I've seen some really fugly houses sell for 700,000. So that's where my brain was looking. So we're talking about this, guys. Understand, take it with a grain of salt in that like we're definitely more defined, right? But RJ is definitely going to sit there and go 100,000 and go for that 430 without being able to lay eyes on finishes on comps and properties that are selling for 700,000 there. Whereas
but again, this all depends upon what the seller is telling me, right?
Yeah.
I'm underwriting this based off of where I think I can get it. And then what does that look like for my end buyers? All right, let's move on to the next one. Gaetano wanted us to do one on rental. So let's do like a higher end rental, and then we'll do a lower end, because I think one of the numbers that really gets people is like those sub $100,000 rental properties. Before we do that, very common one, $200,000 ARV. Okay. Square foot, 1050. The seller says it's not in terrible shape. Main things that need to be done are the bathrooms, new windows, and everything's out of date, but it's well taken care of.
What does the seller want for it?
Seller wants 100. Okay, so that's on the flip side, right? Now let's go to the rental side. The potential monthly rent is $1,800 a month.
Ooh. Okay, so normally for it to rent out for $1,800 a month, a lot of times you can go ahead and put in a lower rehab for rental properties, but for renting out for $1,800 a month, that's definitely not. I'm not feeling that vibe in this price point in any market in the country. So I'm keeping maybe my numbers with maybe the exception of some windows here. I'm going with like, at least maybe 190 here just to be on the safe side with $30,000 in repairs. Seller. What market is this in?
I got rid of it.
1,800. We're going to assume it's a decently busy market for that rent rate for a $200,000 house. That's pretty bananas. I would lock this up all day thinking that it would sell because it has more than 20% equity and it's got cash flow.
So when I look at this, I think if I'm a landlord, I probably want to get it as close to that $200,000 ARV as close as possible. I want to keep those repairs down. I think you could probably get there with a little bit less, because you got to think we're not selling it. So see, I think everyone needs to understand this. There's a difference between what a property will appraise for and what a property will sell for. So if you've ever done a refinance on a rental property, well, you have to understand it's very common for the property to not necessarily be a $200,000 property, but for an appraiser to say on the refinance it's $200,000. It's $200,000 neighborhood. So they give you that 200. Or like Cassie put 190. I like the fact that she's being conservative on there. But you could probably get away with only doing about 20, 25,000. You know, it's called lipstick on a pig for a reason. But again, I like the fact that we're being aggressive on the rehab, conservative on the ARV, and this puts us at a place where, as an end buyer, if I'm looking at this, I could toggle my decisions. So if I'm buying this for 115, I then have decisions on how much rehab do I want to put into it to achieve a certain value, to then refinance, to then rent out. So all of these numbers can be toggled. So like, for example, we might, and this is what Cassie always talks about with the as is comps. Let's just say, Cassie, that there are the condition that the property is in right now. There are properties that are selling for 150,000. Put in 150.
I was gonna say 135.
So 150,000, and say we don't have to do anything. Now
we gotta get it rent ready. Come on, dog.
Just for argument's sake, okay? Nothing, okay? And
multiple exit strategies here.
Now say the rent rate goes down to 1,500. There's plenty of landlords that would make that decision.
All right. You know, no, I don't know if y'all noticed this, if y'all were paying attention enough about me reading RJ's mind. Like, we did not pre-discuss this. I have no idea where this property is. He's just pulling rabbits out of hats over here, and I'm reading his mind because, like, I know how these numbers look for me as an end buyer. And so he's just throwing out examples. It's like we've done that many properties. All your buyers think like this.
Cassie, the reason why I just use that example is because I have sat here as the end buyer and looked at our rental properties and said, okay, so we just had a tenant in that property for the past 2 years. Tenant just left. Now we have a decision to make. What do we want to do?
Yep.
What do I want to rehab it? Do I want to refinance?
And buy and hold investors can sit there and slowly pour into that property or that rehab little by little. Gaetano, I'm gonna literally shake you because you've told me how many times you've watched all the modules. I'm gonna shake you in that implementation call tomorrow. It literally tells you on this tool that is not the case, brother.
I'm gonna shake him. You want me to shake him? I'll shake a beard into him.
Shake a beard into him? Yeah, that would be. Gaetano would look very handsome with a beard. You know it.
You know, the thing about Gaetano is that sits there, they yell at him on implementation calls, and he just looks so happy about it.
I love that about him.
He just sits there and he smiles back at me. He just loves it. No, Gaetano, it depends on the market. That's why we put specific markets on there. A 1% rental would never work in Jackson, Mississippi, Birmingham, St. Louis. I mean, I guess there's certain parts of St. Louis it could work, but it's very few and far between. But like Tyler's saying, you know, a 1% rental could work in certain parts of Cleveland, and then other parts of Cleveland, a 3% rental wouldn't be considered a good deal. Okay.
Right. So here's the other thing too. Kente, that's because it costs $97. Okay, brother. We can't change your world. I can only record. I've got to record like 15 of those that we sell for $97, and most people don't even give you that much when you pay them, 10 grand. So Caesar and I actually have been thinking Caesar. It's so funny that we're bringing this up. Gaetano, thank you, by the way, for asking that question, even though I said I was going to shake you and threatened, violence against you and all that good stuff. YouTube, that was a joke, in case you didn't know. I think that one of the things like I've been thinking about is a cash out number. And I think Caesar actually, if I'm not mistaken, Caesar, tell me if this is incorrect. I think Caesar put that calculation on his personal profit calculator. Like, hey, Burr, this is your cash out number. I've thought about adding that. Right now, I'm obviously split testing this yellow box, as we're running numbers. Like, it's the juice worth the squeeze box. I'm not real sure.
You put the juicy box on the profit calculator. All right.
This is how you know I created this, because I've got the crazy terms.
Get rid of those numbers. Let's do. I think this is the hardest properties for people to underwrite, and it's common. Like, I think these properties are the most common properties across the United States, in my opinion. Okay. And they're also the ones that lead to more terminations. After repair value, 80,000.
Yeah, I was gonna say 75,000. This is where people screw everything up. Square footage.
1344.
Oh, Lord Jesus, that is the one. She's the one.
Seller inherited the property and it's been vacant for 3 years.
Oh my Lord Jesus. Okay. What are they asking?
12,000.
12,000.
It's all back taxes. They just want the back taxes paid off.
She's cute. Okay. So these are the $5,000 wholesale. This is the $5,000 wholesale box.
but Cassie, here's the thing. Think about it. I mean, you watched my video and I said, go buy 25 leads off of Coupon Club and you get you a contract. You get this. It's in Birmingham, Alabama. Comes across. You drop the address in the prop stream and you see 80, 75, 82, 85, 78 all around, and the seller's saying 12 grand.
Okay. Time out. Pause. What I'm not seeing, if I'm that person, is $5,000, $4,000, $3,500 left, right, and center all over Birmingham, Alabama, like it's a friggin' plague. Those aren't rent rates, my friends. Those are people buying properties for those prices in this condition, okay? When you can throw a stone and pick up a property for $4 grand, why you gonna try to buy this sucker for 17 grand? You're gonna be wasting a whole over 10 G's. You know what I'm saying? $13,000. So here's this, you guys, is where these 2% rentals, this is where.
Hold on, before we go to the rent rate side, let's change the condition.
Okay.
Let's say they say it was a rental property and the tenants just moved out and it just needs to be cosmetically updated from tenants living in it for the past 2 years. Okay.
She's barely a deal.
All right.
If those as-is comps, you cannot, guys, I am giving you literal, like if you do this all the damn time up in Birmingham and St. Louis and Kansas City and blah, 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 let me tell you, you're making the mistake of not looking at, if you're in this price point, if you are sub 150 most of the time in most markets, but if you're sub $100,000, that's nobody's Taj Mahal. There's nobody's mansion. That's nobody's forever dream home that they want to put on HGTV. Okay. You are making a mistake of not looking at as comps. If buyers can go pick this crap up for less than you are even, offering, much less than your asking price to buyers, they will laugh you out of that city. You will get unsubscribed, blocked, blah, blah, blah. That's why you have to go over to this. So while this, per what I tell you, is a feasible actual deal, you have to make sure, another thing that we haven't talked about, that so many people are not paying attention to this. So many people are not paying attention to this. Gaetano, my love, this is for you. Your ARV is determined by your repair budget. If your $80,000 property, if your subject property cannot look like the comps that sell for 80 grand with $22,000 in repairs, then this is not a deal. That's not a deal. People forget.
Rent rate is $1,200.
Ooh, she's sexy. Now this is a deal again where people will screw this up. People will screw this bad boy up because this works. This works all day, but not if they can pick them up for $5,000 off the MLS.
Not if they can pick them up for $5,000 off the MLS. And also, this is not a deal that you should try to make $20,000 off of. But they'll look at it and say, but look at how much equity I'm giving and look at all this other stuff. It's a great deal. And it's like,
so true.
Understand something, okay? The hardest properties to manage and be a landlord for are these.
Oh, my Lord. Yes.
They earn that, because I can promise you that they're not getting that $1,200 a month.
And this is probably built in 1925.
Let's see. We got it right. 1935.
That's, guys. If you don't listen to me, if you don't listen to the words that come out of my mouth and understand that I know my stuff, I'm not looking at RJ's screen. I don't even know the address of this property. He's picking amongst like 1,700 properties that are in our comp portal. We're not showing the address. I can't see it. He's just giving me these terms. I just know my real estate. Like, there's no way that this buyer, like you, and we get these deals all the time. We're not only where they're not looking at the, hey, people are picking these up from 5 to 10 grand and I'm going to be asking 17,000. Use your logic, y'all. You're going to be lucky to make $1,000 on this. Like if it's also not in a market where like there's a high demand and low inventory, especially, you know what I'm saying? But we get deals submitted to us like this. They think they got a banger and they will put that like, what do you think the potential could be? And they're like, well, it's still over a 2% rental and there's still more than, 20%. This is still a banger deal. I'm going to get 20,000 on it. And like, they just don't understand your end buyers are going to laugh you off the face of the planet because nobody's buying a property in this condition for 32 grand. Because I can promise you, I already know because I've done enough real estate in these types of markets in Birmingham, Alabama herself in this ARV. This is why you got to be around that 3% mark. So.
You ready? Here we go.
We just gave away just freaking so much value. So much value.
It's what we do.
It's right. It's right, partner. I'm clearing. She's clearing. Let's go.
Caesar, you trying to negotiate back taxes is probably not going to work. All right.
Oh, especially in Birmingham, they're a shit show.
This is a triplex.
Ooh.
$320,000 ARV. Square foot is, call it 3,000.
3,000.
Yeah, it's 1,000.
Really, like two ones.
Correct. Okay. The condition is that it has a new roof, new windows, new floors, and new carpet, 2 new furnaces. 1 unit has an older kitchen and an older furnace. And it is now vacant.
Contract price?
So you're assuming 20,000.
Just let me finish.
160. Okay, now go to the rental side because this is a triplex. You are getting $900 a month per unit, so you're getting $2,700. It's perfect. It's literally perfect. Wait, so here's the reason why this is perfect. Okay.
I like it a lot.
The 30% equity allows that in buyer to refi out. Okay. Yep. And on the other side, there's enough equity if they wanted to fix it up and sell it, they could. That right there, those are perfect numbers across the board. That deal moves in almost every single market in the United States.
Yeah, I agree. I also think that, like, without laying eyes on it, I definitely feel like we're super covered. And the reason why, Caesar, I was aggressive on the repairs is because you have 3 units, which means you have 3 of everything. And I know that 2 of them are good.
He's not saying is that too much work. He was asked about his question.
Oh, okay. Well, I think it's a perfect deal. I love that.
I mean, the only thing that could be potentially is like the location and the rent rate, right? The rent rate is 1.19. There could be potential markets like the Kansas Cities and the St. Louis's and whatnot, depending if it's a C class. It might need to be higher a rent rate.
I know that, but like, you're also, from what I heard you say, those words collecting. We did not comp the rent rate, and I would have a feeling
it's vacant. That is the rent rate.
Okay, so that is the rent rate. I would say this is a lower end triplex for like a major city for the price point and that rent rate. Or this is a little bit more rural. I mean, technically it could be tweaked a little bit, but for cash flow purposes, it cash flows, and you can, you have equity, you can cash it out. You can go buy another. You probably could even potentially get away with doing less in repairs because the 2 units really sound like they're good. I'm just assuming, like, hey, let's give our buyer money to make sure that they have, these perfect rentals in my head, so I think that I was fairly aggressive on maybe that number even, but it would just depend on, with more information, guys. Take it with a grain of salt, because I'm not looking at anything except for he's giving me what the ARV. What does the seller say the conditions in? What is the seller's asking price? And what is the square footage? And on the buy and holds, what is the rent rate, right? And so I'm getting 4 to 5 questions answered. And like, one of the things that RJ and I, we talked about doing this video yesterday, and I'm like, oh yeah, this will be fun, blah, blah. A couple hours ago, he's like, do you want to talk about how, I say a couple hours before we started the video. He says, do you want to talk about how we want to do the live today? And I'm like, yeah, just tell me these things and we'll play like deal or no deal. Like, because this is literally like, I wanted it. I said, let's keep it so super organic because I really just want you guys to know and understand. And don't get me wrong, y'all. I know I always use this phrase that I'm like, I'm not the pretty girl that's saying I'm ugly when it comes to I hate that. I hate that. I'm not saying that I'm not extremely well experienced or I don't deserve the the shout outs or the kudos or titles that I receive for my abilities in this area. I'm absolutely not saying that. I do understand like there's a vast difference from where all of you sit, with the exception of maybe RJ, and where I sit on my abilities to like basically read the matrix. Like I know that I've just done it so much that there's no way that I couldn't be this good at it. Like I literally know real estate that well all over this country. RJ does too. And what I will tell you guys is that I wasn't born knowing this, and I didn't create this calculator when I was 2 years old. You know what I'm saying? Like this was earned through doing the dang work. Like we earned this, right?
Well, I think
So
it's important to understand that at the end of the day, that the whole intention of today's video is to clearly define that there is no definition of what makes a good deal and not a good deal. Like,
yeah, there's no like box you can put it in. It's deal dependent.
every single deal is going to have its own reason as to why it is a deal or it isn't a deal, unless you come across, like, for example, a Travis Wells who's in TU. He has a very specific buy box. He explains it to you. I want to buy everything at 70% of ARV, and I want to do no work. That's what he wants. And he underwrites it, and he's very particular about it.
He's probably conservative on his ARV too because he wants to have minimal holding costs.
It's always conservative. He says, I say no more than any buyer in the country, and I believe it.
Well, and here's the other thing, guys. If you're trying to run a business, because you'll have a lot of like, look, I really, really want to drive this point home because I think it's so freaking important. We are not comping and underwriting these so that you can find a needle in a haystack for a buyer.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of people I know that have like gotten into this industry and they find one buyer and they do like 5 deals in a year and that's enough for them to get by. They don't know how to comp and underwrite where they elsewhere, much less in their own market, right? They only know that one buyer's buy box. So if you're really trying to learn how to do this, you need to actually start learning the numbers. Don't learn your one buyer's buy box because I can guarantee you can lock up more deals in a correct price point in the web or wherein buyers buy and do more volume and make more money and create your reality that you want to create by actually just learning how to run the numbers. It is literally, I say this all the time, it's the lifeblood of everything that you are going to do if you are in real estate is understanding the market, understanding demand. It's just economic principles and math. And we have simplified it for you so easily on a calculator, but you can't just throw on a percentage that's going to fit every property that's going to come across your desk, right? And so at Titanium University, we sit there and we just push and push and push people. You've got to get in to the comp modules. You've got to ask questions. You've got to enter them in the comp portal. You've got to do the work. You've got to show the work. You've got to let us dig into the work with you, because the quicker that you understand these things that we're talking to y'all about for free on this channel today, the quicker you understand them, the more money you're going to make.
Tori, he just joined TU yesterday. He was on his first implementation call this morning, and he was asking a question. He's got this lead after a pair of values in the 300s. So it's got fire damage. Seller's asking 90. And he's like, what makes the juice worth the squeeze here? And I was like, honestly, man, I would run away from the deal. I don't see
hate fire damage properties for that reason.
Well, it was a fire damage. It was also in South Carolina. And again, it's just like at some point in time you have to look at it from, we've done a lot of talking today about, is the juice worth the squeeze for the end buyer? But you also have to look at it and say, is the juice worth the squeeze for me as the wholesaler?
Right.
I mean, is it worth me trying to, figure out the repairs on this, and then I'm going to get a bunch of buyers to go out there, and is it worth potentially tarnishing my relationship with my end buyers by having them go out to look at a fire damaged property where the numbers don't work? I mean, dude, end buyers are very quickly to just be like, okay, disregard that wholesaler. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Right. And like the thing with fire damage properties, it's like actually a lot easier when it's so fire damage that you practically have to rebuild at least half of the house. Where I see people screw up more than anything is the fire damage properties where they're like, it's secluded to the laundry room. And it's like, no, it's not. Like, that's not how housing works. Like, if there's any sort of char mark on a piece of friggin' structural wood, you're in trouble, And it's like, well, we got one not that long ago where they were like talking about, well, it's only in the kitchen. And like you could literally see the stars at night in the kitchen. And it's like, no, that's the whole house is impacted by that. It's so hard to determine a true rehab. So like the fire damage ones that are super easy to underwrite without understanding, are actually like the ones that are pretty much tear downs. So you just run them as a tear down. That's the only time somebody's going to take that risk. It's a lot of work, uncovering what all you have to do. And most of the time, the city is going to ask for like permits and things like that because you have a property. Like they're going to inspect the crap out of your work because they don't want you to be putting lipstick on a pig and trying to resell that thing.
Yep. All right. I think we did a good enough job of saying there is no cookie cutter answer to understanding if you have a good deal or not. Listen, Cassie and I, our goal and objective with everything that we teach here at Titanium is to try to simplify.
Yeah.
But also to make sure that you guys understand that you have to develop skill sets, thought processes, and understanding of everything when it comes to real estate. That's what will make you a successful business. This is why I cannot stand when people say it's just marketing and sales. I don't believe it is. I stand by that. I think today's video kind of shows that. And this is coming from, two individuals that have worked themselves up in this industry from not understanding anything to now doing close to 3,000 deals in all 50 states. So
total badasses.
If there's someone else out there that has a resume similar to that would like to disagree, I'd love to have a conversation with them.
Oh, and we'll have it live. Like I'll go and have this discussion with anyone. And I just want you guys to know, we really appreciate you. Like, even though I don't get to say it as often, I really appreciate all the support you show us, that you show me as an individual through RJ's channel, because I'm not on here very much. But like, man, you guys give my partner give this man his flowers. Okay? Like he is on every day for you. He's on every day for you. And I commend him for that. And like, obviously I support it. Like it's part of our business plan. And I wish I could be on here every day, like with him. Maybe one day I'll get to come on much more. We're trying to ramp that up, but give this man his flowers because I just love his heart for, this industry and for putting this information and this content out there. He's an absolute beast. So if you don't like our shit, go to Steve Trang's YouTube channel and go to Steve Trang's podcast and give him a 1-star review. Real Estate Disruptors, that's the name of that podcast.
That's a good one. So speaking of Steve Train, I mean, it's been.
I miss Steve.
I don't miss him at all. I mean, did everyone see that yesterday that I announced to everyone that Steve's favorite book is Men is from Mars, Women are from Venus?
Men are from Mars and women are from Venus.
Yeah, and then also
you claim that to be factual.
That is an actual fact.
I'm texting Steve after this.
That's an actual fact. I mean, also yesterday, Al Nicoletti, he invited me to be a collaborator on a reel on Instagram. That was the actual moment that Steve Train declared war on wholesaling. It was video proof that Steve and I were on the Al Nicoletti show with some guy named Chris. I can't remember. Irrelevant human being. Chris Jefferson or something. I can't remember. Anyways, Steve was on there, and Al asked us about creative finance. And Steve literally said there's these guys in South Carolina that created this installment method. And he thought it was super powerful. And I just want to say that right after that, he killed wholesaling in South Carolina. I mean, Devin, what you need is to join TU. You need to call your boy John and make it happen. That's all I'm saying.
I actually know this. I'm just like, hey, eventually all of you need to join TU. That's our goal, is to get everybody where we can just give them so much all day, every day.
So
who's that?
That was Justin coming in here saying Devin needs to call Justin.
Okay.
James,
show him your shorts. Maybe he'll come and maybe he'll call you back.
Oh, James says, I have a question. If a FSBO property that I have people helping me find, if they have a minimum of 2 comps and a good ARV, is that a good deal?
A FSBO property have people helping me find.
Hold on. Let me decipher this.
James, stop. Those are not what makes a deal a good deal or not. That's irrelevant. ARV.
Did you watch today's video, James?
Rewind.
James, you need to rewind. Yes.
Yeah.
You definitely should watch that. James, you need to go watch my video.
Put it in the comp portal, for crying out loud.
Ask better questions. That is definitely what should have happened there. Cassie, you missed it earlier today in the implementation call. Someone, I think they were a little bit nervous. This is their first question ever on an implementation call. Mind you, there was like 100 people on today's call. So I get it. You know, you're from 100 people, you're asking a question. And it was a statement. It was a statement about a deal. I got this deal, Tiki Island.
Adam, I didn't miss it. And you're like, Adam, what's your question?
They just stopped talking, and I was like, what you guys don't understand is sometimes for us, we have no idea where you're taking this. So yeah. I'm constantly clinging on to like certain parts of your question as you're telling me the whole story, thinking like, okay, this is about to be an ARV question, maybe a rehab question, maybe about what he should have said to the seller. Maybe I don't know what we're saying. And I was like, Adam, I don't mean to be an ass, but what was your question? So,
well, you know what? Here's the other point I make. And like, I didn't actually get to this point. Y'all saw the very little information RJ gave me. Okay. If you're not giving us at least that much, we can't even tell you if it's a deal or not. Number one. Number two, when you're telling me a piece of information in addition to that, like it's a FSBO, well, Lord Jesus, is the number lower than what they have it FSBO'd for, because you're not going to lock up a FSBO. So y'all need to understand, a lot of times when people ask us questions, whether they're in Titanium University or they're not, it's like the answer is going to be, it depends. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, get down to the math and the facts about the property if we know what you know. So like on our JV forum or in, the comp portal, there's a lot more questions than just the ones that RJ just gave me for us to be able to get as accurate as possible without having a formal inspection on the dang old thing and like comping it.
All
My
right.
only ways of offers right now is FISBOs. I have a few people sending me FISBOs with 2 comps per property with an ARV, and I just got call and offer what Eric Klein so to do to get my first. What?
He's in Eric Klein's program. That's why he's not in TU, because he gave Eric money, so he can't give us money. And he's got people going and buying him FISBOs, and then they send him 2 comps and say this is the ARV, and then he's trying to offer based off of what Eric Klein taught him to do.
James, when people tell you to offer a percentage of a Zestimate or an ARV, and they don't tell you to do what we just showed you to do instead, I'm probably not going to agree with them.
Yeah. I mean, James, here's what you need to do. You need to get hooked up with a TU member. There's several on here. You need to get hooked up and you need to call their leads. You're running a rat race to goat poop. I mean, I just that ain't the path, brother.
Yeah, dude. Come on.
So he's offering 65% or 50% of asking price on the FISBOs.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean,
the answer could be like, that might work. That's literally, you know what that is? I'm going to say it like, unlike I normally say it. I normally say spaghetti, but I'm going to call it what it is here. That's throwing goat shit at a wall and seeing if it will stick.
James, I remember. That's why I just told you the whole story. I remember talking to you. You need to get hooked up with a TU member. I know you're stuck. There's several on here.
We're trying to change that.
There's several on here, but not on Facebook. They're on YouTube. There were like 75 people. Now there's 50 people watching on YouTube. But you need to get hooked up with TU member. I would go into the vault and I would say, is anyone inside of Titanium University open to me coming on and doing acquisitions for you for a short time so I can then join? And I guarantee someone would do it. So
you got a lot of badasses in there, and I love that.
Justin was the guy that you talked to. All right. Appreciate you guys. Like Cassie said, make sure you like the video on YouTube. Makes a difference. Helps us on the algorithm. I just watched a video on that, and they literally were talking about how important the likes are on videos. It literally like they're basing off of whether or not other people should watch off of that.
What's our #1 exclusive top tier performing student? I don't know. We got millionaires.
I mean, we just had someone do $500,000 last month. That was pretty good. In a month. Kente, you always ask that. Kente's 17, by the way. Kente asks this like once a month.
Why?
Any team in the Florida market? Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, funny enough, if y'all want to see, it looks so cool now.
Mm-hmm. I love our little.
This is the Titanium University community member map. So this is where all the members are. We got our 2 Australian friends. We got Bangladesh. We got Israel. We got Ukraine, Italy, Germany. We got Colombia. We got Nicaragua. I think I said that correctly. We got a couple in Hawaii and Alaska. And then when we come down here into the mainland.
Ishrock said, hi, fam. He said, I heard my shout out.
What's up, Ishrock? Ishrock is our boy out there in Bangladesh. But yeah, we got people in Florida all over. Quite a few down there in Miami, Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville. So yeah, constantly growing. All right. That being said, We do appreciate you guys. Make sure y'all like the video. Be prepared for more content later this week. See you guys tomorrow.